A humble mother was dining with her daughter when a billionaire approached and made an unexpected request. "Pretend I'm her father." What seemed like just an act revealed secrets from the past and forever changed the lives of the three of them. Before we begin, I'd like to know a little about where you live. How's the weather there today? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to follow us for more content like this. Sofia Martinez smoothed her 5-year-old daughter Emma's curls one final time as they approached the hostess stand at Bella Court, the most expensive restaurant in downtown Chicago. The elegant establishment, with its crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, represented a world far removed from their cramped studio apartment. But tonight was special. Emma's 5th birthday deserved something magical, even if it meant spending Sofia's last $200. "Mama, it's so fancy," Emma whispered, her wide brown eyes taking in the gilded mirrors and fresh orchids adorning every surface. Her small hand gripped Sofia's fingers tightly as they followed the hostess through the dining room filled with businessmen in $1,000 suits and women wearing jewelry worth more than Sofia made in a year. "It's perfect for my perfect birthday girl," Sofia replied, forcing confidence into her voice, despite the anxiety gnawing at her stomach. Tomorrow she would figure out how to pay rent, how to stretch groceries for another week, how to explain to Emma why they couldn't afford dance classes anymore. Tonight was about creating one beautiful memory in their often difficult life. The hostess seated them at a small table near the kitchen, clearly the least desirable spot in the restaurant, but Sofia didn't care. Emma's face glowed with excitement as she examined the heavy silverware and cloth napkins with the wonder only children possess when experiencing something completely new. "Can I order anything I want?" Emma asked, her voice hushed with the reverence of someone entering a cathedral. "Anything your heart desires, sweetheart." Sofia opened her menu and tried not to wince at the prices. $38 for chicken, $45 for pasta, $62 for the seafood special. She'd known it would be expensive, but seeing the numbers made her stomach clench with the familiar fear of financial ruin. Around them, the restaurant hummed with quiet conversations and the gentle clink of expensive china. Sofia caught fragments of discussion about stock portfolios, European vacations, and business deals worth millions. She felt like an imposter in her Target dress and second-hand shoes, but Emma's happiness made every uncomfortable moment worthwhile. "Mama, look at that pretty lady." Emma pointed discreetly toward a table where a woman in a designer gown sat alone, checking her phone repeatedly with growing irritation. "She looks sad, even though she's in such a beautiful place." Sofia followed her daughter's gaze and felt a pang of recognition. Not of the woman specifically, but of the loneliness that expensive clothes and perfect makeup couldn't disguise. Money didn't guarantee happiness, a lesson Sofia had learned the hard way during her own privileged childhood before everything fell apart. The waiter approached their table with professional courtesy, tinged by subtle condescension that suggested he'd assess their financial status within seconds. "Good evening, ladies. Can I start you with some appetizers, or perhaps our wine selection? We'll have the children's pasta for her and the garden salad for me," Sofia said quickly, choosing the least expensive options available. "And 2 waters, please." Emma's face fell slightly. She'd been eyeing the chocolate dessert display near the entrance, but she didn't complain. At 5 years old, she already understood that money was always tight and that special treats required careful consideration. "Actually," Sofia reconsidered, seeing her daughter's disappointed expression, "we'll also share the chocolate birthday cake. It's her 5th birthday." The waiter's demeanor softened marginally. "Of course. We'll make sure to add a candle and have the staff sing for her." As they waited for their food, Emma entertained herself by creating elaborate stories about the other diners. The businessman at table 6 was clearly a secret agent. The elderly couple by the window were retired circus performers, and the man sitting alone near the bar was obviously a prince traveling in disguise. "What about him, Mama?" Emma pointed toward a tall man in an impeccably tailored navy suit who had just entered the restaurant. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention, his salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, and his watch catching the light with every gesture. But despite his polished appearance, something in his eyes suggested barely controlled tension. "He looks important," Sophia observed, noting how the hostess immediately guided him to a premium table without question. "Maybe he owns the restaurant." The man, who appeared to be in his early 40s, sat down but immediately stood again, scanning the dining room with an intensity that seemed out of place in the refined atmosphere. His gaze swept across the room twice before settling briefly on Sophia and Emma's table. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowded restaurant, and Sophia felt an odd jolt of recognition despite being certain they'd never met. Emma was describing her elaborate theory about the man being a movie star when their waiter returned with drinks and bread. The normal dinner service continued around them, but Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that something was building in the atmosphere, a tension that had nothing to do with her own financial anxieties. "Mama, the movie star man is coming over here," Emma announced with 5-year-old directness. Sophia looked up to see the well-dressed stranger approaching their table with purposeful strides. His expression was serious but not threatening, and when he reached them, he leaned down slightly and spoke in a low, urgent voice that only they could hear. "I need you to do something for me, and I'll pay you $5,000 cash right now." Sophia's heart began racing, her protective instincts immediately on high alert. She pulled Emma closer while keeping her voice steady. "I'm sorry, but we're not interested in whatever you're selling. Please, just listen for 30 seconds. The man's voice carried a desperation that seemed genuine, despite his expensive clothes and confident bearing. "My name is James Morrison. There are men in this restaurant who want to hurt me, and they're waiting for me to leave alone. But if they think I'm here with my family, with my wife and daughter, they'll wait for a better opportunity." Sophia glanced around the restaurant, trying to identify potential threats among the well-dressed clientele. Everyone looked perfectly normal, engaged in their meals and conversations. "What men? I don't see anyone threatening." "Table 12, near the window. 2 men in dark suits who've been nursing the same drinks for an hour while watching my every move. They followed me here from my office." James's jaw tightened as he spoke. "I can't go to the police because I don't know how deep this conspiracy goes, but if you help me tonight, I'll give you enough money to change your life." Emma looked between the adults with curious eyes, understanding that something important was happening even if she couldn't comprehend the details. Sophia's mind raced through possibilities. Was this man telling the truth? Or was this some elaborate scam designed to exploit her obvious financial desperation? "Why us?" Sophia asked quietly. "Why not ask someone else?" James's expression softened as he looked at Emma, then back at Sophia. "Because you have the most beautiful family dynamic I've seen in years. Anyone watching would believe we belong together. And because I can see you need the money as much as I need your help." The brutal honesty of his last statement hit Sophia like a physical blow. Her financial struggles were apparently obvious to strangers, written in her discount clothes and careful menu choices. But $5,000 would solve every immediate problem in their life: rent, groceries, Emma's daycare, maybe even a small emergency fund. "What exactly would we have to do?" Sophia found herself asking, despite every rational instinct screaming at her to walk away. "Just let me sit here and have dinner with you. Hold my hand when we leave. Let me walk you to your car like a husband and father would. Give me 30 minutes to convince those men that I'm not alone and vulnerable." Sophia looked at her daughter, who was listening to the conversation with the intense focus children reserve for adult mysteries they sense are important. $5,000, enough to secure their future for months, enough to give Emma some of the opportunities Sophia desperately wanted to provide. "If this is some kind of trick," Sophia began, "I understand your caution, but I swear to you I'm telling the truth. Check my wallet if you want. My driver's license, business cards, everything will confirm who I am." James reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a leather wallet, placing it on the table between them. Sophia hesitated for another moment, then picked up the wallet and examined its contents. Driver's license for James Robert Morrison, age 42. Business cards identifying him as CEO of Morrison Holdings, a company she vaguely recognized from financial news reports. Credit cards, photos of what appeared to be empty picture frames, and exactly $5,100 in cash. "The 5,000 is yours whether this works or not," James said softly. "Just for trying to help me." Emma tugged on Sophia's sleeve. "Mama, is the nice man going to have dinner with us for my birthday?" Looking into her daughter's trusting eyes, then at the desperate hope in James Morrison's face, Sophia made a decision that would change everything. She slid the wallet back across the table and nodded slowly. "Okay, Mr. Morrison. For 30 minutes you can pretend to be Emma's father." James Morrison sank into the chair across from Sophia with visible relief, though his eyes continued to scan the restaurant periodically. Up close, Sophia could see the stress lines around his eyes and the way his hands trembled slightly as he reached for the menu, details that suggested his fear was genuine rather than manufactured. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice carrying profound gratitude. "You have no idea what this means to me." Emma studied their unexpected dinner companion with the unfiltered curiosity of a 5-year-old. "Are you really going to pretend to be my daddy? Because my real daddy lives in California and only calls sometimes." James's expression softened as he looked at the little girl. "I would be honored to pretend to be your daddy for your birthday dinner. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma Rose Martinez, and I'm 5 years old today." Emma held up 5 fingers proudly. "Mama brought me here because it's the fanciest restaurant in the whole city." "Well, Emma Rose Martinez, this is definitely the perfect place to celebrate being 5 years old." James signaled the waiter, who approached immediately with the deferential attention reserved for clearly wealthy customers. "We're going to need to see the dessert menu and perhaps some champagne for the lady." Sophia started to protest the expense, then remembered that this man had just handed her $5,000 cash. Still, accepting charity, even from someone who claimed to need her help, felt uncomfortable after years of proud self-reliance. "You don't need to spend money on us," Sophia said softly. "We agreed to help because you seemed genuine, not for expensive food. Please, let me do this. It's Emma's birthday, and it helps sell the illusion that we're a family celebrating together." James's smile seemed more natural now, though his periodic glances toward table 12 continued. "Besides, when was the last time you had champagne?" Sophia couldn't remember the last time she'd had anything more expensive than grocery store wine, but before she could respond, Emma launched into an enthusiastic description of her birthday wishes and dreams. James listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking questions about her favorite colors, toys, and school subjects with the patience of someone who truly enjoyed children's company. "I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up," Emma announced importantly, "so I can help sick animals feel better. Mama says I'm really good at taking care of things." "I bet you are," James agreed. "That's a wonderful dream. Do you have any pets?" Emma's face fell slightly. "We can't have pets in our apartment, and they cost lots of money for food and doctor visits." Sophia felt heat creep up her neck at another reminder of their financial limitations, but James simply nodded, understanding. Pets are a big responsibility. It's smart to wait until you're sure you can take proper care of them. The waiter returned with champagne for Sophia and sparkling apple cider for Emma, along with an assortment of appetizers that James had apparently ordered while she was distracted by their conversation. The food was beautiful, tiny works of art that probably cost more than Sophia typically spent on groceries in a week. "Try this," James encouraged Emma, pointing to what appeared to be a miniature grilled cheese sandwich cut into perfect triangles. "It's made with 5 different kinds of cheese from France." As Emma tasted the gourmet food with obvious delight, Sophia found herself relaxing despite the surreal circumstances. James Morrison might be a stranger asking for an elaborate favor, but his interactions with Emma seemed genuinely warm rather than calculated. He remembered details from her stories, responded to her questions seriously, and treated her with the respect that good adults showed children. "So tell me about yourself," James said to Sophia during a brief pause in Emma's chatter. "What do you do when you're not rescuing mysterious businessmen in expensive restaurants?" "I'm a graphic designer, freelance work, mostly small businesses and websites." Sophia took a sip of champagne, feeling the bubbles tickle her nose. "It's inconsistent income, but it lets me work from home and take care of Emma." "That must be challenging, balancing single motherhood with running your own business." Sophia glanced at him sharply, wondering if he was judging her situation or genuinely expressing understanding. "It has its moments, but Emma's worth every sacrifice." "I can see that. She's lucky to have a mother who puts her first." James's expression grew distant for a moment. Not every child gets that kind of devotion. Before Sophia could ask what he meant by that comment, their main courses arrived. Emma's pasta came shaped like butterflies and covered in a sauce that sparkled with what the waiter explained were edible gold flakes. Her eyes widened with wonder as she carefully twirled the first bite on her fork. "This is the most beautiful food I've ever seen," Emma declared. "It's like eating jewelry." James laughed, the first truly relaxed sound Sophia had heard from him. "When I was your age, I thought fancy food was weird. I preferred peanut butter sandwiches and chocolate milk." "You can still like peanut butter sandwiches when you're grown up," Emma informed him seriously. "Mama makes me the best ones with strawberry jelly and the crusts cut off." "Your mama sounds very wise." As they ate, Sophia found herself stealing glances at table 12, trying to identify the supposed threat James had mentioned. The 2 men in dark suits were indeed nursing the same drinks and seemed to be paying more attention to the room than to each other, but they looked like any other business associates having a quiet meeting. "How do you know they're dangerous?" Sophia asked quietly, while Emma was occupied with her sparkling pasta. "Because they've been following me for 3 days, James replied, his voice barely audible. "Ever since I started asking questions about my family's financial records. My lawyers think I should be concerned about corporate espionage, but my gut says this is something more personal. Family financial records." James hesitated, clearly debating how much to reveal. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 27. I inherited their business empire, but I've recently discovered some irregularities in how certain assets were distributed after their deaths. When I started investigating, strange things began happening. Cars following me, break-ins at my office, now these men showing up wherever I go." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. "Have you considered that maybe you should just let sleeping dogs lie? Some secrets might be dangerous to uncover." "I can't do that. There are other people who might have been hurt by whatever conspiracy I've stumbled into. I won't be able to live with myself if I don't find out the truth." Emma had finished most of her pasta and was beginning to show signs of the sugar crash that inevitably followed special occasions. She leaned against Sophia's arm with sleepy contentment, occasionally offering James bites of her remaining food, with the generosity children show to people they've decided to trust. "She's getting tired," Sophia observed. We should probably think about leaving soon. James checked his watch and nodded. 30 minutes is almost up anyway. The plan is for us to leave together. Walk to your car like a family, and then I'll call my driver to pick me up once I'm sure those men have moved on. What if they follow us anyway? Then I'll make sure they follow me and not you. James's expression grew serious again. I want to be very clear. If anything seems dangerous, you take Emma and get to safety immediately. Don't worry about me or the money or anything else. Your daughter's safety is the only thing that matters. Something in his tone made Sophia study his face more carefully. There was genuine concern there, but also a kind of protective instinct that seemed too strong for someone who'd met them an hour ago. She was about to ask him about it when the waiter approached with Emma's birthday cake, a towering confection of chocolate and strawberries with 5 bright candles. Happy birthday, Emma. The restaurant staff sang in unison, drawing smiles and applause from nearby tables. Emma's face glowed with joy as she made her wish and blew out the candles with one powerful breath. What did you wish for? James asked as they cut the cake. I can't tell you or it won't come true, Emma replied seriously. But it was something really important. As they shared the decadent cake, Sophia found herself wishing this strange evening could continue indefinitely. For one night, Emma was experiencing the kind of celebration every child deserved. Fancy food, undivided adult attention, and the feeling of being cherished and celebrated. The fact that it was built on a lie and funded by a stranger's fear didn't diminish Emma's happiness, but it reminded Sophia how fragile their circumstances really were. Are you ready? James asked softly as Emma finished the last bite of cake. Sophia looked around the restaurant one final time, noting that the men at table 12 were indeed watching their table with obvious interest. Whatever James Morrison was involved in, the threat seemed real enough. She gathered her purse and helped Emma down from her chair. Remember? James said as he stood, we're a happy family leaving after a birthday celebration. Hold my hand, Emma, and stay between your mama and me. Emma slipped her small hand into James's much larger one with complete trust, looking up at him with sleepy contentment. Thank you for making my birthday so special, pretend daddy. James's expression cracked for just a moment, something raw and painful flickering across his features before he composed himself. Thank you for letting me be part of your special day, sweetheart. As they walked toward the restaurant exit, Sophia felt James's free hand settle gently on her lower back, a gesture so naturally protective that anyone watching would assume they'd been together for years. The illusion they were creating felt dangerously real, and Sophia found herself wondering what it would be like to actually have this kind of partnership in her life. The men at table 12 stood as they passed, confirming James's suspicions about being followed. But they made no move to approach, apparently convinced by the family tableau moving past them toward the exit. It wasn't until they reached the parking lot that Sophia realized their evening of pretense was about to become something much more dangerous than either of them had anticipated. The moment they stepped into the parking lot, James's entire demeanor shifted from relaxed family man to hypervigilant protector. His eyes swept the dimly lit area, cataloging potential threats, while his hand remained firmly on Sophia's back, guiding them toward the section where most families with children would logically park. Your car? He asked quietly, his voice carrying a tension that made Sophia's pulse quicken. The blue Honda Civic, 3 rows over. Sophia pointed toward her modest sedan, suddenly embarrassed by its obvious age and wear compared to the luxury vehicles surrounding them. But James showed no judgment, simply nodding and adjusting their path accordingly. Emma skipped between them, still glowing from her birthday celebration and blissfully unaware of the undercurrents of danger flowing around her. That was the best birthday dinner ever, she announced happily. Can we come back tomorrow? Maybe someday, Sophia replied, her attention split between her daughter's chatter and James's obvious concern about their surroundings. The parking lot seemed normal enough, well lit, security cameras visible, other diners moving to and from their cars without apparent distress. They were halfway to Sophia's car when James suddenly stopped walking, his grip on her back tightening in warning. "Don't look back," he said quietly. "But those two men just came out of the restaurant. They're trying to look casual, but they're definitely following us." Sophia's mouth went dry, but she forced herself to keep walking at the same steady pace. Emma seemed to sense the shift in mood and moved closer to Sophia's side, her small hand finding her mother's. "What's happening, Mama?" Emma asked with the intuitive concern children display when they feel adult anxiety. "Nothing, sweetheart. We're just walking to the car like always." Sophia managed to keep her voice calm, despite her racing heart. This was exactly the kind of situation she'd feared when she agreed to help James, getting Emma involved in something potentially dangerous. James's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it quickly before his face went pale. "My driver was just involved in an accident. Conveniently, he's stuck on the other side of town and can't pick me up." "That's not a coincidence," Sophia said, understanding the implication immediately. "No, it's not." James looked around the parking lot again, his expression grim. "They're isolating me, making sure I don't have easy escape options." They reached Sophia's Honda, and she fumbled with her keys while James maintained his protective position behind them. Emma was beginning to pick up on the tension, despite their efforts to appear normal. "Why are you acting scared?" "Acting?" Emma asked James directly, her 5-year-old perception cutting through adult attempts at deception. James knelt down to Emma's eye level, his expression softening despite the circumstances. "Sometimes grown-ups have to be extra careful about their safety. But you don't need to worry, because your mama and I are going to make sure nothing bad happens." "Are the men from the restaurant bad guys?" "I don't know yet, but we're going to be very smart and careful, okay?" Emma nodded solemnly, apparently satisfied with this honest answer. Sophia finally got her car door unlocked, but as she moved to help Emma into her car seat, James caught her arm gently. "I can't let you drive home alone," he said quietly. "If they're willing to cause accidents to strand me, they might try the same thing with you, and now they've seen you with me, which might make you a target." Sophia felt cold fear wash over her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this situation just became a lot more complicated than I anticipated. Those men aren't just following me, they're controlling the situation, which means they have resources and planning behind them." James glanced around the parking lot again. "We need to get somewhere safe where I can figure out what's really going on." "We're going home," Sophia said firmly. "Emma needs to get to bed, and we're not getting any more involved in whatever this is." "Sophia, please think about this logically. If these people are willing to orchestrate accidents and follow us this persistently, do you really think they'll just forget about you because you go home? They've seen you with me. They know what you look like, what your car looks like." The truth of his words hit Sophia like a physical blow. By agreeing to help James, she had inadvertently painted a target on herself and Emma. The $5,000 that had seemed like a blessing an hour ago now felt like payment for putting her daughter in danger. "This is my fault," James continued, reading her expression accurately. "I should have anticipated that the situation was more serious than I realized, but now that we're all involved, the safest thing is to stick together until I can get protection for all of us." "Protection from who?" Sophia demanded, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "You still haven't told me who these people are or what they want." Emma had climbed into her car seat and was watching the adult conversation with growing concern. Sophia realized they needed to make a decision quickly. Standing in an exposed parking lot while potential threats circled them was not sustainable. "My hotel suite has security," James offered. "Corporate protection, private elevators, the kind of place where it would be very difficult for anyone to cause problems. We could go there, I could make some calls, figure out how to resolve this safely. Duh. Every maternal instinct Sophia possessed screamed against taking Emma to a hotel room with a virtual stranger, no matter how genuine his fear seemed. But every logical thought process led to the same conclusion. They were already involved, and going home might just make them easier targets. "Mama, I'm getting scared," Emma said quietly from her car seat. "Can we go somewhere safe?" The simple request from her daughter crystallized Sophia's decision. Emma's safety trumped every other consideration, including Sophia's discomfort with trusting a stranger. "Okay," Sophia said finally. "But I drive myself, and the moment I feel like this situation is wrong, we leave, no matter what you say or do to try to convince us otherwise." James nodded emphatically. "Absolutely. You maintain complete control over your own decisions. I'm just asking you to let me help keep you safe while I figure out how to resolve this." As they prepared to leave the parking lot, Sophia caught a glimpse of the two men from the restaurant standing near a black sedan, speaking into phones while keeping their car in sight. The professional nature of their surveillance chilled her to the bone. "James," she said as she started her car, "I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that whatever this is really about, you'll tell me the truth. Because if we're putting our lives on the line to help you, we deserve to know what we're really dealing with." James was quiet for a long moment, his expression troubled. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested the truth was more complicated than even he fully understood. "I promise I'll tell you everything I know. But, Sophia, I'm starting to suspect that what I know and what's actually happening might be two very different things." And as they pulled out of the parking lot, with the black sedan following at a discreet distance, Sophia realized that Emma's 5th birthday had just become the beginning of something that would change all their lives forever. The question was whether that change would ultimately save them or destroy them. The pretense of being a family had lasted exactly 30 minutes, but the consequences were going to extend far beyond anything any of them had imagined. The Ritz-Carlton's presidential suite occupied the entire top floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Chicago's glittering skyline. Emma pressed her face against the glass in wonder, while Sophia tried to process the opulence surrounding them. Crystal chandeliers, Italian marble, and furnishings that probably cost more than her annual income. "This is like a castle," Emma breathed, her birthday excitement renewed by the unexpected adventure. "Are we really sleeping here tonight?" James emerged from the bedroom, carrying extra pillows and blankets. "You can have the master bedroom, and I'll take the couch. There's 24-hour security, and no one can access this floor without special authorization." Sophia remained standing near the door, every maternal instinct still screaming warnings despite the luxurious safety surrounding them. "James, I need those answers you promised. My daughter's life might be in danger because I helped you, and I still don't know why." "You're right. Sit down, please. Sit down." James gestured toward the living area while keeping his voice gentle enough not to alarm Emma. "What I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible, but I need you to trust me." Emma had discovered a basket of expensive chocolates and was examining each piece with scientific precision. Her contentment gave Sophia the freedom to focus entirely on James's explanation, though she remained ready to grab Emma and run if necessary. 15 years ago, my parents died in a car accident," James began, settling into the chair across from her. "I was 27, just starting my career, when I suddenly inherited Morrison Holdings, an empire worth over $200 million. Sophia felt something cold settle in her stomach. 15 years ago, the same year her own life had been destroyed by tragedy and betrayal. The inheritance should have been split between me and my younger sister," James continued, his voice growing heavy with old pain. "Sophia Morrison was 13 when our parents died. She was supposed to receive half the estate when she turned 21, plus a trust fund for her education and care until then. The room seemed to tilt around Sophia as she processed the familiar name, not Sophia Martinez, the identity she'd adopted after aging out of foster care, but Sophia Morrison, the girl she'd been before her world collapsed. "What happened to your sister?" Sophia's voice emerged as barely a whisper. "She died 3 days after our parents." "At least, that's what I was told." James's hands clenched into fists as he spoke. "Car accident while being transported between foster placements. My uncles, my father's brothers, handled all the arrangements while I was hospitalized with injuries from the crash that killed my parents." Emma had moved to the couch between them, apparently sensing the emotional weight of the conversation, despite not understanding the words. She leaned against Sophia's side while offering James a chocolate with the generosity children show when they perceive adult distress. "Thank you, sweetheart," James said, accepting the candy with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're very thoughtful." Sophia's mind raced through memories she'd spent years trying to suppress. The car accident that killed her adoptive parents because she'd never known her birth family or her original surname. The confused days in the hospital, then sudden placement with her uncles who claimed her parents had left specific instructions about her care. The gradual realization that Richard and Thomas Morrison saw her as a burden rather than family. "Your uncles," Sophia said carefully. "What were their names?" James looked at her sharply, clearly picking up on something in her tone. "Richard and Thomas Morrison. Why?" The chocolate Emma had given her slipped from Sophia's nerveless fingers. Richard and Thomas Morrison, the men who had made her teenage years a nightmare of emotional abuse and manipulation before she finally escaped into foster care at 16. "James," she said slowly, her voice shaking with the weight of impossible recognition. "What did your sister look like?" Dark hair, brown eyes, small for her age. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder shaped like a crescent moon. James's expression grew puzzled. "Sophia, why are you asking these questions? You look like you've seen a ghost." With trembling hands, Sophia pulled down the neckline of her dress just enough to reveal the crescent-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder. The same mark that had always made her feel connected to something she couldn't remember from her early childhood. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma looked between the adults with growing confusion, sensing that something monumental was happening, but unable to understand what. "That's impossible," James whispered, his face draining of all color. "Sophia Morrison died 15 years ago. I saw the death certificate, attended the funeral." "You attended a funeral for an empty casket," Sophia said, the pieces of her fragmented childhood finally clicking into place. "Because I wasn't dead, James. I was sitting in a foster home 3 states away, believing that my entire family had been killed and that I was completely alone in the world." James stood abruptly, pacing to the windows as he struggled to process the revelation. "But how? Why would Richard and Thomas tell me you were dead? What could they possibly gain from—" He stopped mid-sentence, understanding flooding his features. "The inheritance. If I was dead, the entire estate would go to you with them as trustees until you were established," Sophia continued, the ugly truth crystallizing in her mind. "And if something happened to you, they would inherit everything as the remaining family members." James turned back to face her, his expression a mixture of rage and devastation. "They've been trying to kill me, Sophia. The men following me, the accidents, all of it. They're cleaning up loose ends." Emma had been listening to this exchange with growing alarm, her 5-year-old mind trying to process concepts far beyond her understanding. "Mama, why are you crying? And why is Mr. James calling you Sophia?" Sophia realized tears were streaming down her face as she looked at the brother she'd mourned for half her life. The successful, powerful man sitting across from her was the 27-year-old who had probably grieved for a sister he believed was dead, just as she had grieved for a family she thought she'd lost completely. "Emma, sweetheart," Sophia said gently, pulling her daughter onto her lap. "Sometimes people get separated when they're children, and they don't see each other for a very long time. Mr. James and I just realized that we're brother and sister, and we haven't seen each other since I was 13 years old." Emma's eyes widened with the wonder children reserve for magical revelations. "He's my uncle? My real uncle?" James knelt down in front of them, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "If your mama is really my sister Sophia, then yes, Emma, I'm your uncle, and I've been looking for your mama for 15 years without even knowing she was alive. Is that why you were so nice to me at dinner? Because you're family?" "I was nice to you because you're a wonderful little girl," James said honestly. "But yes, I think part of me recognized something familiar about both of you. Family connections run deeper than we understand sometimes." Sophia studied James's face, searching for traces of the older brother she barely remembered from her childhood. The shape of his eyes, the way he gestured when he spoke, even his protective instincts with Emma, all of it resonated with half-forgotten memories from before the accident that had changed everything. "There's something else," James said quietly. "I've been having private investigators search for any trace of Sophia Morrison for the past 5 years. When I started asking too many questions about the estate records, that's when the threats began." "They know you're close to the truth," Sophia realized, "and now that they've seen us together. Oh, they know their secret is about to be exposed." James's expression hardened with determination. "Which means we need to move fast. I have evidence hidden in a safety deposit box, documents that prove Richard and Thomas falsified your death certificate and embezzled money from both our trust funds." Emma had grown quiet during their conversation, her young mind working to understand the implications of suddenly having an uncle who was in danger from bad people. Are the mean men going to try to hurt Uncle James? The simple question crystallized the danger they all faced. Richard and Thomas Morrison had spent 15 years believing their crime was perfect, but now their carefully constructed lie was unraveling. Desperate people with millions of dollars at stake would go to extraordinary lengths to protect their secret. "Not if we stop them first," James said firmly. "Sophia, I know this is overwhelming, and you have every right to take Emma and walk away from this mess, but if we work together, we can expose what they did and make sure they never hurt anyone else." Sophia looked at her daughter, then at the brother she'd never expected to see again. For 15 years, she'd believed herself alone in the world, except for Emma. The discovery that James was alive and that they still had a chance to be family was overwhelming, but the danger to Emma remained her primary concern. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. "We get the evidence from the safety deposit box, turn it over to the FBI, and let them handle Richard and Thomas. But we need to do it tomorrow, before my uncles realize how much I've figured out." Emma tugged on Sophia's sleeve. "Mama, if Uncle James is really your brother, does that mean we have a real family now?" The hope in her daughter's voice broke something loose in Sophia's chest. Emma had always wanted extended family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, the kind of large family gatherings she saw other children enjoy. The possibility of giving her daughter that connection, combined with the chance to finally have justice for the crimes committed against them, made Sophia's decision easier. "Yes, baby," she said softly, meeting James's grateful gaze. "It means we have family now." The next morning brought Chicago's notorious wind and threatening gray clouds that seemed to mirror the tension building around their mission. James had arranged for a private security team to escort them to the bank, But Sophia still felt exposed as they walked through the downtown streets toward Morrison Holdings' corporate banking partner. Emma skipped between them, holding both adults' hands with the unshakable confidence of a child who believes her family can protect her from anything. She'd woken up that morning calling James Uncle Jamie and had insisted on sharing her cereal with him, small gestures that highlighted how much she'd craved extended family connections. "The safety deposit box is registered under both our names," James explained as they approached the imposing glass towers of First National. "Our father set it up that way so either of us could access family documents when we were old enough. I don't think Richard and Thomas even know it exists." The bank's marble lobby echoed with their footsteps as they were escorted to the secure vault area. Emma was fascinated by the elaborate security procedures, hand scanners, multiple keys, and thick steel doors that looked like something from a movie about bank robbers. "This is where important secrets are kept safe," James explained to Emma as they waited for the vault attendant to locate their box. "Sometimes families need to protect information until the right time to share it." When the metal box was finally placed on the table in the private viewing room, Sophia's hands trembled as she helped James open it. Inside were manila folders, official documents, and several items she recognized from her childhood: photographs, a small jewelry box, and a teddy bear she'd thought was lost forever in the accident. "Oh my God!" she whispered, lifting the worn stuffed animal with careful reverence. "Mr. Buttons, I thought he was destroyed with everything else." Emma leaned closer to examine the teddy bear. "He looks like he was very loved, Mama." "He was your Mama's favorite thing in the whole world when she was little," James said gently. "Our father saved him along with these other things, probably hoping Sophia would want them someday." "Bro." As they sorted through the documents, the scope of Richard and Thomas's deception became clear. Falsified death certificates, forged legal documents transferring trust fund assets, and most damning of all, a recorded confession from a corrupt social worker who had been paid to place Sophia in a foster system under a false identity. "Listen to this," James said, playing a digital recording on his phone. The voice was obviously Richard Morrison's, speaking to someone about cleaning up loose ends and making sure the girl never surfaces to ask questions. Sophia felt sick as she realized how thoroughly her uncles had planned to erase her existence. Not only had they stolen her inheritance and separated her from her brother, but they'd systematically eliminated every trace of Sophia Morrison from official records. "There's more," James said grimly, pulling out a folder marked with Emma's birth year. "They've been monitoring you, Sophia. Private investigators tracking your movements, your employment, even Emma's school enrollment." The photographs in the folder showed Sophia at work, dropping Emma at daycare, shopping for groceries, intimate moments from their daily life that had been violated by surveillance. Worse still were the detailed reports about Emma's health, personality, and development that read like someone was evaluating a potential target. "They know about Emma," Sophia said, cold fear settling in her stomach. "They've been watching my daughter." "Which means they know she's their great-niece and a potential heir to the Morrison estate," James realized, his face going pale. "Sophia, they're not just trying to eliminate loose ends anymore. They're planning something that involves Emma." Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number. "We have something that belongs to you. Millennium Park, Buckingham Fountain, 1 hour. Come alone, or little Emma learns what happened to the last Morrison child who asked too many questions." The blood drained from Sophia's face as she showed James the message. Emma was playing quietly with Mr. Buttons, oblivious to the threat that had just materialized around her. "They don't have Emma," James said quickly, noting Sophia's panic. "She's right here. They're trying to separate us and draw you into a trap." But they know where we are, what we're doing. How is that possible?" James's expression turned grim as he examined their surroundings more carefully. "Because someone in my security team is working for them. Or they have surveillance equipment I didn't detect." Emma looked up from her quiet play, sensing the adult tension that had suddenly filled the room. "Uncle Jamie, why do you and Mama look scared again?" Before either adult could answer, the bank's fire alarms began blaring throughout the building. Emergency lights flashed, and an automated voice announced the need for immediate evacuation. But James grabbed Sophia's arm instead of moving toward the exit. "This isn't a coincidence," he said urgently. "They're forcing us out of a secure location into the open." "We can't stay here if there's really a fire," Sophia protested, lifting Emma into her arms. "And we can't leave if this is a trap designed to separate us from these documents." James was already photographing pages with his phone, working quickly to preserve evidence. "Take Emma and get to the police station. I'll grab what I can and meet you there." "I'm not leaving you here alone," Sophia said firmly. "We're family and we stick together." Emma wrapped her arms around Sophia's neck, pressing her face against her mother's shoulder as the alarms continued their piercing wail. "I want to go somewhere quiet," she said in a small voice. The bank employees were evacuating in orderly fashion, but James noticed several men in maintenance uniforms moving against the flow of traffic, heading toward their location rather than toward the exits. Their purposeful movement and coordinated timing suggested they weren't real bank employees. "We need to move now," James said, stuffing documents into his jacket while keeping his voice calm for Emma's sake. "There's a service elevator that leads directly to the parking garage. If we can reach my car—" "James Morrison," a voice called from the vault entrance. Richard Morrison stood there, flanked by two large men, his expensive suit and silver hair making him look like a distinguished businessman rather than a criminal. "And my dear niece Sophia. How touching to see the family reunited at last." Emma lifted her head to look at the stranger, her child's instincts immediately recognizing something wrong in his too bright smile and cold eyes. She pressed closer to Sophia, who instinctively backed toward the far wall of the small room. "Uncle Richard," James said evenly, though Sophia could see the tension in his shoulders. "I was just thinking about calling you. We have so much to discuss about family history." "Indeed we do, particularly about family members who were supposed to stay buried." Richard's gaze moved to Sophia with undisguised hatred. "You've caused considerable trouble, my dear. 15 years of careful planning, and you had to surface now to complicate everything. By complicate everything, you mean expose your crimes." Sophia found her voice despite her fear. "You stole our inheritance, faked my death, and destroyed our family. Emma and I deserve to know the truth about who we really are." "What you deserve," Richard said coldly, "is irrelevant. What matters is protecting the Morrison legacy from gold-digging social climbers and their bastard children." The cruel words hit Sophia like physical blows, but it was Emma's confused whimper that ignited her maternal fury. No one spoke about her daughter that way, family connection or not. "Emma is your great niece," James said firmly, stepping slightly in front of Sophia and Emma. "She's Morrison family, with more right to our name than either you or Thomas. She's the illegitimate child of a woman who should have stayed dead," Richard replied. "But fortunately that's a problem we can still solve." The threat was clear enough that even Emma understood they were in serious danger. But as the two men flanking Richard moved forward, James pulled out his phone and held it up where everyone could see the screen. "Smile for the FBI," he said calmly. This entire conversation is being live-streamed to Agent Sarah Coleman, who's been investigating Morrison Holdings for financial irregularities. Say hello to 15 years in federal prison for human trafficking, fraud, and conspiracy." Richard's confident expression cracked as he realized they had been outmaneuvered. But instead of surrendering, his face twisted with rage at being denied his final victory. "If I can't have the Morrison Empire," he snarled, "then no one can." What happened next would either reunite a family that had been torn apart by greed or destroy the last hope Emma had of growing up with the extended family she'd always dreamed of having. Richard's threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud as sirens wailed in the distance, real emergency responders arriving for what they believed was a genuine fire alarm. The timing couldn't have been more perfect for Richard's plan or more dangerous for James, Sophia, and Emma. "The building's being evacuated," Richard continued, his voice taking on the calculating tone of a man who'd spent decades manipulating situations to his advantage. "Emergency responders will find a tragic accident. Gas leak explosion in the vault area. 3 family members who died trying to retrieve important documents during a fire." Emma pressed her face against Sophia's neck, her small body trembling as she sensed the adult fear surrounding her. "Mama, I want to go home," she whispered. "We're going home, baby," Sophia said firmly, though her voice shook with the effort of staying calm. "Uncle Jamie and I are going to make sure we all go home safe." James kept his phone raised, the live stream still active. "Agent Coleman can hear everything you're saying, Richard. Federal agents are already in the building. Surrender now, and maybe you can negotiate a plea deal instead of spending the rest of your life in prison." "Federal agents can't help you if you're dead," Richard replied coldly. "And accidents happen during building evacuations, tragic but believable." One of Richard's men moved toward them, but James stepped forward with surprising confidence. "You're making a mistake. Check your phone." Richard's expression flickered with uncertainty, but he pulled out his device. The color drained from his face as he read whatever message had appeared on his screen. "Thomas was arrested 20 minutes ago," James announced. "Along with the private investigators you hired, the social worker who falsified Sophia's placement records, and your financial advisor who helped launder the stolen trust fund money. You're the last piece of the conspiracy, Uncle Richard." The news hit Richard like a physical blow. His carefully constructed empire was crumbling around him, 15 years of crime and deception finally catching up to him in a single morning. But instead of making him more reasonable, the revelation seemed to push him over the edge into desperate fury. "Then I have nothing left to lose," he said, reaching into his jacket. "Gun!" James shouted, throwing himself toward Richard, while Sophia instinctively shielded Emma with her own body. The next few seconds unfolded in chaotic slow motion. James tackled Richard, sending them both crashing into the metal shelving along the vault wall. The weapon, a small pistol, skittered across the floor toward Sophia's feet. Richard's hired men moved to help their employer, but the vault entrance suddenly filled with FBI agents in tactical gear. "Federal agents! Everyone on the ground now!" Emma was crying now, overwhelmed by the noise and violence erupting around her safe space. Sophia dropped to her knees, covering her daughter's body with her own, while reaching for the pistol to kick it away from everyone involved in the struggle. "It's okay, Emma," Sophia whispered fiercely. "The police are here. We're safe now. Uncle Jamie is safe." James and Richard were still wrestling on the floor, 15 years of suppressed rage and betrayal fueling James's determination to subdue the man who had destroyed their family. But James was a businessman, not a fighter, and Richard was desperate enough to be dangerous. "James!" Sophia called out as Richard managed to break free and reach for something in his jacket. Not another weapon, but a small device that looked like a detonator. "If I can't have the Morrison fortune," Richard gasped, his face twisted with madness, "then I'll make sure no one can. This building is wired to—" Agent Sarah Coleman's voice cut through the chaos with professional authority. "Mr. Morrison, drop the device and put your hands where we can see them. The explosive devices were disarmed an hour ago when we arrested your accomplice. Richard's face went from determined fury to blank confusion as he realized his final desperate gambit had also been anticipated and neutralized. The FBI had been several steps ahead of him throughout his entire plan. "How?" Richard whispered. "Your nephew has been working with us for 6 months, Agent Coleman explained, as tactical officers moved to secure the scene. When James first suspected family members were trying to kill him, he came to us instead of hiring private security. Everything that happened in the past 24 hours was designed to draw you and Thomas into making moves that would provide evidence of your crimes." Sophia looked at James in shock as the pieces fell into place. "You've been working with the FBI this whole time?" James, now restrained by FBI agents for his own protection, met her eyes with an expression of guilt and relief. "I suspected you might be alive when my investigators found traces of Sophia Morrison's foster care records. But I needed proof of what Richard and Thomas had done before I could approach you safely. The restaurant, the men following us, all of it was planned. The men following me were real, Richard's people. But I knew the FBI was conducting surveillance to keep me safe. When I saw you and Emma in that restaurant, I realized it was the perfect opportunity to make contact while surrounded by witnesses and protection." Emma had stopped crying and was now listening to the adult conversation with the intense focus children display when trying to understand complicated family dynamics. "Uncle Jamie, were you pretending to need help like a game?" James's expression softened as he looked at his niece. "Not pretending to need help, sweetheart. I really did need help. I needed to find your mama and make sure you were both safe from the bad people who hurt our family." Agent Coleman approached Sophia as Richard was led away in handcuffs, his empire finally destroyed and his crimes finally exposed. "Ms. Martinez, or should I say Ms. Morrison, will need you to testify in the trials, but I want you to know that your uncle's crimes have been completely documented. You and Emma are safe now." "What happens to the Morrison estate?" Sophia asked, still trying to process the magnitude of the day's revelations. "With Richard and Thomas convicted, and with James's testimony about the falsified death certificate, the estate will be redistributed according to your father's original will. You'll receive your full inheritance, plus damages for the 15 years of theft and suffering." Emma tugged on Sophia's sleeve. "Mama, does this mean we're rich now?" James laughed, the first genuinely happy sound Sophia had heard from him. "It means you and your mama will never have to worry about money again, Emma, and more importantly, it means our family is finally back together." 6 months later, Emma's 6th birthday party was held in the garden of the Morrison family estate, a sprawling property that had been restored to its original purpose as a home for family gatherings rather than a monument to stolen wealth. The guest list included Emma's new school friends, children from the neighborhood, and several families that James and Sophia had met through their newly established foundation for reuniting families separated by fraud and abuse. "Make a wish, birthday girl," Sophia said, as Emma prepared to blow out her 7 candles. Emma closed her eyes tightly, then opened them with a mischievous grin. "I wished for Uncle Jamie to find someone nice to marry so I can have an aunt, too." James, who had been taking photographs of the celebration, nearly dropped his camera. "Emma, that's supposed to be a secret wish." "But I want it to come true fast," Emma explained with 7-year-old logic. "And sometimes grown-ups need extra help with important things." Sophia laughed, watching her brother's embarrassed expression. After 15 years of believing they were alone in the world, they now had something more precious than any inheritance. A real family built on truth and love rather than lies and greed. The broken wheelchair from their first story had brought healing to one family, but sometimes the most powerful healing comes from discovering that the family you thought you'd lost forever was never really gone at all. Emma's wish might or might not come true, but the wish that had brought them all together, the desperate hope for family, safety, and love, had already exceeded every dream any of them had dared to imagine. As the sun set over their celebration, Sophia realized that sometimes strangers who ask for help in fancy restaurants aren't strangers at all. Sometimes they're exactly the family you've been searching for your entire life.